Welcome to the Five Mercy Podcast. This month is February, and we're beginning a new theme, building on our connections. As you saw in the video, the 4th of February is World Cancer Awareness Day. And today we're paying tribute. But before we bring our returning guests, I want to share some facts. This kind of a little timeline of where we were. 1775, Percival Pott actually um, found exposure of chimney sweep to an incidence of squamous cell carcinoma among chimney sweeps. And they're like, why is this important? Because it was the first clear indication that environmental exposure to development to cancer. In 2018, the Pan Cancer Atlas, they funded with the National Institute of Health to dive even deeper into 33 different cancer types. Cancer in 2018 has 18.1 million new cases that year and 19.5 million cancer-related deaths. Now, today we have a return guest, like I said, Terry, coming back. I really appreciate you coming back and sharing your insight, when it comes to, obviously paying tribute to World Cancer Day, but also understanding how important our connections are. Thank you. Welcome to coming on, Terry.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me back. I'm looking forward to talking to you about cancer today.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to also tell all my guests who are all my listeners and everyone who's been following me. Despite we're talking about cancer, there is, if you are in crisis in the United States, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. But I do encourage you, wherever you are in the world, to find what resources may be helpful. And I start off with a quote because I know people say it better. I say this all the time, Terry. Martin Luther King Day was in January. So it was last month when this episode will air on the 3rd. So whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. What comes to mind, Terry, when you hear this quote?
Yeah, I think we're all designed for something. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming. And so I think it really is important. I've always believed that our purpose in life, regardless of what you do for a living or anything like that, is to serve. If you believe in God, to serve your God, but certainly to serve each other and to make each other better. And Robert, I've said this before that, if I didn't know you, but I knew the 5 people that you hung around with the most, I could tell you a great deal about the kind of person that you were. So if there were people around you that care about you, that don't have your best interest in mind, that aren't uplifting you, get those people out of your life. Get them out of your life and surround yourself with people that love you, that care about you, that are willing to tell you the truth. But what do we do when that happens? It's like, hey, Terry, you're really messing up here. And it's, what do we do? Oh, you're not my friend anymore. Oh, no, trust me. Those people are your friend because they're willing to tell you the truth. At the same time, they're also willing to sacrifice the relationship they have with you to be honest with you. So absolutely, our job is to help other people get better.
Yeah, and I love how there's a lot of courage in that. In a friendship or a relationship, it's not easy to say. It's great when you're having a great time. That's the easy part. It's not great when you have to kind of have these conversations, but either way, life is best lived shared. Whether it doesn't mean that you have to get married or anything like that. All it means is we're connected people. Whether you're faith-based or not, and like you said, being around positive people can lead. Well, I've seen very kind of measures of where you're at in your mindset. If you're around people, you maybe have all these intentions, but if you're surrounded by very negative, it's going to stunt it. From my experience, that usually is the case. Again, I want to give you an opportunity, Terry. Last time you were on was December, and I just want to kind of give you an opportunity. I appreciate you coming on. I know that World Cancer Day, a lot of people, it touches a lot of families around the world, Very, whether you're the one who's going through cancer or the family, it impacts it tremendously. I think Martin Luther King also, when he made that quote, says that. So if I'm sick, I can't. It's going to indirectly affect my family, the ones I love, even if I don't want it to. So I want to give you an opportunity to share with us how your journey has been. It's only been a few months, but anything you want to update us on, and any message you would like to share with the listeners regarding whether World Cancer Day or on the topic or on both.
Well, I think when you have cancer, whether it's excuse me, whether it's yourself or your family or your friends, every day is World Cancer Day. Every day is a day that you wake up that you have to fight. And I'll just for your listeners who didn't know my story, 2012. So I've been battling this very rare form of melanoma since 2012, for almost 10 years now. And that has seen me be on a drug called interferon that gave me severe flu-like symptoms for 2 to 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for 5 years. So imagine having the flu every week for 5 years. And that was not a cure. That was not going to cure me. That was just a way to try to keep the disease from coming back. 2018, the disease did come back, and I had my left foot amputated. 2019, 2 more surgeries when the cancer worked its way up into my shin. And then 2020, I had an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle that grew large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone. And my only recourse during the pandemic was to have my left leg amputated above the knee. And I also found that I had tumors in my lungs, which I'm still being treated for. And I feel very fortunate in a way that I'm still here, because I started a clinical trial drug about a year ago. For me, it's been about 16 months, but I started with a couple other people. And those people are gone now. They have succumbed to their disease. And so I kind of feel like I have to keep their legacy alive. I have to keep going. I have to keep fighting. And again, this drug probably not going to save my life, but the way I look at it is, it may save somebody else's life, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that I don't even know, based on the data that my doctors are gleaning from my blood tests, from my scans and things like that. And if that's the case, then not only will my colleagues, the people who took the drug with me, will their legacy continue, but so will mine, because I will leave this world a better place than I came into it. And I know cancer sucks, and I get that. I've been through it for 10 years, but sometimes we need to embrace that suck, and we need to use it to make our lives better. And I don't like these last 10 years. They've been horrible. But I think I'm a better human being because cancer came into my life.
It's just remarkable, and it's also inspiring. When I was going through the facts, I didn't know half the thing. I had to do some research before it came on here, because I didn't know half the things I was reading here. But the idea that each cancer, either survivor or doesn't survive, it adds to more of the research and more moving forward. So in a way, it's as unfortunate. I just love how positive you are despite it all, because it is, for a lot of us, if we're not being honest with ourselves and we kind of try to lie to ourselves, it hits you hard, the reality of it all. But I do appreciate you, especially on this day, that maybe someone just found out he has cancer, so a family member just found out. It may be overwhelming, but it is inspiring to hear your story, and it's open-ended. You're still being treated. So kind of tying in also the theme of this month, building on our connections means many different things, as you kind of mentioned kind of indirectly in your story. What does this month's topic, building in your connections, mean to you today?
Yeah, we are all connected. I mean, you talked about it earlier. I mean, if you go back as far as the Bible, God made man, and then God realized man by himself not really good,
not very good.
Thing. Let's put man to sleep. Let's take man's rib. Let's make woman. That is, I think, less about man and woman and more about our interconnectedness to each other. And I have been fortunate to have I talk about the things that have gotten me through these 10 years, and I call them my 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. And, I've always had a very deep faith in God. I realize some people don't, but for me, it works. And we're great, especially in the United States, as a society of wanting to place blame. We don't want to take responsibility for our own success and happiness. So as soon as we start down some road, hey, I want to start a business, or, I want to go to school. And as soon as we butt up against a little bit of an obstacle, we oh, wait a minute, nope, can't do that anymore. Yeah. And then we want to find somebody to blame. We want to blame our parents or our boss or our station in life. We don't want to take that responsibility. And we need to, because you know what? Us individually can't do anything, but us collectively can do just about anything we set our minds to do. So I'm very fortunate that I've had these faith, family, and friends in my life. I sort of tell the joke about, it's really not a joke, it really happened this way, but it's kind of a funny story about my family. When I found out I had these tumors in my lungs, my doctor wanted to put me on chemotherapy. And I looked at him and I said, well, is it going to save my life? He's like, no, probably not. I said, well, then I'm not sure I want to do that. I was 8 years into this fight. And I said, if the outcome's going to be the same, I'm not sure I want to put myself and my family through the ugliness of chemotherapy, but I'll go home and talk to my family. So I do, and it's just my wife and daughter and myself, and I start telling them what's going on, and my daughter immediately is like, all right, we need a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? It's not like we got a board here or anything like that, So we sit around the kitchen table and individually talk about how we feel about me having chemotherapy. And then when we do that, my daughter's like, okay, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my daughter and my wife raised their hand, and I'm like, wait a minute, am I getting outvoted? Based on something I don't want to do. But I remembered back when I was in the police academy, I was a policeman for a number of years, and our defensive tactics instructor used to have us bring a photograph of the people we loved the most to class. And we were to look at that photograph as we were learning different techniques to defend ourselves, because he reasoned you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. And so I ended up taking chemotherapy because I loved my family, in all honesty, more than I loved myself. I wanted this to be done. I wanted this to be over. But from that perspective, I love my family more than I wanted it to be over. So I took care of chemotherapy. And in a way, I'm glad, because it led me to be on this clinical trial drug that I'm still alive and I'm still here.
Yeah, and it's just interesting in the very beginning we're talking about connections, and we're talking about, you said, positive connections, and it's just an example of many examples. I'm sure not only you but myself or people who've been struggling that could say, that last minute when I was like, I'm done, because we're pretty, like, we could cut, like, when things when it rains and it pours, it's easier to say no if there's no one else close to us, because we get, but when you have those people, I just love when we think about how supportive you have. A positive support network doesn't matter the outcome. It matters at the current being present, and it can be, I've seen such progress. Natural support is sometimes a resource that's never talked about. Natural support is your family, your friends, what you believe in. You go to church or not? What do? Do you have a hobby? Do you think you deserve a hobby? All these kind of weird questions you ask yourself. And in South Africa, there's this word called Ubuntu. It actually says, I find my worth in you and you find your worth in me. It's this collective. Like you said, we all kind of, as much as we don't like to admit it, and I also like how you address, we like to point the finger. And I think that's a lot of times, from my experience, it's fear. It's like, I don't want to be wrong. It's so, they don't ask the question, is it more important to be wrong, or is it more important to grow? And when it comes to these kind of situations, I've come to the realization in the last few months that accountability is not a bad word if you're in a safe place. And that's where the positive, and that's why it's, I'm adamant, if you're around people who don't have your best interests, maybe they're just not in the right part of their lives, and you don't have to be rude or anything, but it's about building that support. What would you say to someone listening right now who's fighting a similar fight to you today? anything you want to share, Terry?
I just say keep going, and you know, you're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I don't wear a cape.
Yeah.
I have bad days just like everybody else. I cry, I get down, I get depressed, and when I do, I think of two stories, and one was about a professor at Johns Hopkins University back in the 1950s who did a very simple experiment. He took rats, and trust me, this is going somewhere. I was like, what's he talking about rats for? You know, he took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the rats would tread water. So initially, the rats tread water for about 15 minutes. And just as they're ready to get to sink and to drown, he reaches in, grabs the rats, pulls them out, dries them off, lets them rest for a while. And then he puts them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, the average rat treads water for 60 hours. Think about that. First time, all I can do, 15 minutes and I'm going to drown. I'm going to give up. I'm going to die. Second time around, 60 hours, which says to me two things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives. We have to have hope. We have to believe our lives are going to get better. We have to believe that we're working for something else. And as I said before, I'm on this clinical trial drug, probably not going to save my life, but I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for other people who I may never even know, and for my colleagues who I'm hoping to keep their legacy alive as well. So the importance of hope in our lives, we have to have that. And then number two, just how much more our physical bodies can handle. And I remember when I was on interferon, and I mean, I was so sick, and I was so sick of being sick that I prayed to die. I literally asked God, like, please, just take me. I am so sick of this, but he didn't. But what he did do for me is gave me the strength, gave me the power to continue to move forward, to continue to go on. And, you know, sometimes we talk about winning the day, you know, and I know I felt that, and I'm sure the people who have cancer, you know, I just got to get through today. To me, that was winning the day. How am I going to win this day? And sometimes winning that day was winning just this little bit. I've just got to get out of bed, and I've got to make it to the couch. So you have the grit inside you. You have everything you need to be successful in life already inside you. You just need to find it, pull it out, and use it for your advantage.
You know, there's one quote I used recently. One group I use is called from Yasmin Mogahed. It says, "Resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going." I think this quote really addresses something that I struggled in my 20s. You know, desensitized to sensitivities, think I was stronger, it limited myself. It's not that, you know, you do that, you actually feel everything and you keep going, and it's easier said than done. And as you were sharing, there are moments that you did struggle like anyone would, and I feel that this is such a gray area, because a lot of times there's a lot of talk of, like, you know, especially generations before, it's like, don't show your feelings, emotions are weakness, all this stuff. But it's not that emotions are weakness. It's just not, we shouldn't be guided by them. You know, if my feelings are what guides me everywhere, I'll be probably in jail. You know, and that kind of thing. But when it comes to resilience, it's not being numb. It's noticing, like, I'm angry. Angry is not a bad thing. Being angry is just something needs to change. It's addressing something. And also, when you were talking and you were sharing, I was also thinking, I read one of my favorite authors, well, as in high school, was Ernest Hemingway. I used to read a lot of his stuff. I think it's Farewell to Arms. I remember that book, and I remember there's a portion, I'm paraphrasing the officer or whatever. He's like, how important is the man beside you? And it was like, they're in the foxhole, is like more important than the war itself. So when it comes to connections, I feel those in the military could attest to that, especially who done combat. But I think it ties very well, because every February 4th is World Cancer Day, and like you said, every day is World Cancer Day if you're experiencing and living it. Any final thoughts you would like to share with those listening, watching, regarding World Cancer Day and our connections? I know we kind of covered a lot, but what personally would you like to share with those people listening today?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. I had a nurse recently ask me, what was it like to have your foot amputated? What was it like to have your leg amputated? And I told her, I said, it hasn't been easy. I had my leg amputated in 2020. I am still learning how to walk with a prosthetic. I mean, when you're a little kid and you're learning to walk, you kind of fall down and everything's funny and you have a good time. When you're an old man and you're 6'8" tall, falling is not an option. You get hurt when you fall from this distance. But what I told her was that, it has been difficult, but cancer can take all my physical faculties. But cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who we are. And I think that's important you remember. You're right. We experience this pain. We hurt. I mean, I go for tests. I go for treatments, and there's pain, and there's pain involved with that. Pain in our lives is inevitable. And since we're talking about cancer, obviously we'll focus on cancer pain, but it can be any kind of pain in our lives. Yes. We don't get a promotion at work that we think we deserve. We break up with our girlfriend or our boyfriend. We fail a test at school. Whatever that is, pain is inevitable. But suffering is optional. Suffering is what you do with that pain. Do you take it and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual, or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want people to feel sorry for you? Life is about choices, and how you choose to live is how the outcome's going to be. And you can't live one way and expect a different outcome. So don't worry about the pain. Take the pain, use it to make you a stronger individual, and realize that who you really are, cancer can never touch that. Remember that. Your heart, your mind, your soul. That's who you really are. This is just a house or a vessel or whatever to house the person that we are. Use that pain to make you a better person.
Thank you, Terry, for being willing to share with us today. Reframing how external events in our lives, what's happening to us, reflecting can be that monumental step forward. One thing what breaks my heart is not when bad news happens to someone, is when they take it like, this shouldn't happen to me, and they get stuck there. Why does this happen? It's not bad to have. I'm not saying it's bad to have those thoughts. I'm saying you can't. It's about where do you go from there. Things happening externally. The old song, I remember it was in my head. Raindrops keep falling on my head. Yeah, that old classic song, and you kind of wonder, like, what does he talk about? And I think thinking back, I think a lot of us have it when it rains, it pours. But this guy who's singing, he's like, I'm loving it. He's reframing how this whole event is happening, and it's interesting and reflective, because the time he sang that song back then, it's not that he said, I'm numbing myself and that's why the rain does. No, he's like, I'm feeling all the rain and it's wet, and I'm reframing how I see it. Thank you again, Terry, for sharing again. I just want to share those who are listening. ReviveMinistriesFL.com is our website. You can find all where we're connected. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And this is Goodbye from Revive Ministry Podcast. This is a longer quote, but I want to share it with you in parts. It says, think back to the most important experience of your life. The highest of highs, the greatest victory is the most daunting obstacle to overcome. How many happened to you alone? I bet there are very few. When you understand that being connected to others is one of life's greatest joys, you realize that life's best comes when you initiate and invest in solid relationships. Positive, solid, supportive relationship. Thank you again, Terry. And this is Goodbye from Revive Ministries. Till next time.